Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. My name is Tamara Johnson, and you are watching A Minute with Mom TV. And I'm so glad that you decided to click on this video today and come spend some time with me. So, around here, if you're new here, I want to tell you a little bit about what to expect in this space. In this space, you can expect for me to encourage, empower, and uplift you. That is my single and solitary aim and goal, is to make you feel like you're leaving this space and this time together better. And so if I can accomplish that, then I have done my job. And I'm so grateful to those of you who have been rocking with me for some time, those of you who um, get in the comments and leave your comments and interact with me. I really do appreciate presence here. And I want to encourage those of you who are new or a little bit shy, don't be scared. I don't bite. Put a comment down in the comment section. Be respectful because we don't play that around here. But yeah, I love interacting with you guys. So don't be afraid to hit me up in the comments. Don't be afraid to talk to one another in the comments and share your experiences and your perspectives and your points of view respectfully. And yeah, let's get this community thriving and growing together so that we are not doing it alone. Now that I have all of the introductions out of the way, I want to tell you what we're talking about today. And today we're talking about boundaries. And boundaries is something that I started learning about 20 years ago. I didn't even know the concept, I wasn't familiar with it. And I had an older, more seasoned mentor kind of take me under her wing, and she began kind of pouring into me about boundaries. And that's when I started my relationship with boundaries and understanding what that is, how they work, and how to implement them in my life. And I thought that it would be pretty cool for me to share that with some of you all. I know that my viewership is kind of broad. So some of you are in your 20s, some of you are teenagers and you're just getting into adulthood. Some of you are seasoned like myself, but we could all stand to learn something from one another. And so that is why I come on here and share and do what I do. Boundaries from my perspective. And I would like to tell you, chew the meat and spit out the bones. You don't have to listen to a single thing that I tell you to do here on this channel. As a matter of fact, I'm not telling you to do anything except for leave me a comment and thumbs up. But no, seriously, you don't have to follow what I say. These are suggestions. These are just me giving testimony and my experience in life. So please chew the meat and spit out the bones. If something that I say on this channel does not apply to you, or you don't like it, or it doesn't sit well, you have the right to disagree. I'm not stopping you, and I'm not going to stop your game either. Do you, boo? I'm just sharing what I know, okay? So, boundaries. Let's define what that is. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, a boundary is something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent. Something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent. So, for example, a boundary would be a fence, a partition, a border, a door, a gate. And so, for this conversation, the context of this conversation, I'm going to kind of weave in and out of different terminologies for boundaries. And so I will ask you to think of your boundary as a fence or a gate. I will ask you to think of a boundary as different rooms in a house. But all of these things pertain to you. All of these things pertain to your head space, your heart space, and your physical space. Okay. So I just want to make that very clear before I go any further. All right. So as I said, a boundary indicates an extent, or it tells you where you can and cannot go. So I want you to think of boundary for this conversation as, just imagine that I've given you a piece of land, and this is your land. You are the overseer. You get to make all the decisions. And on your land, you do have a boundary. You have a fence or a gate of some sort, and you are the gatekeeper. And so that means that you get to decide who comes in, who goes out, who stays, how long they stay, all of those things. You get to decide. That's what boundaries do for us in our lives. It gives us the ability to make the decision and the choice to decide who we let into our headspace, who we let into our heart space, and who we allow into our actual physical spaces. So you are the gatekeeper. Now that you have your piece of land and you understand what your role and your function is, I want you to take a look and examine your boundaries. Now that we understand what boundaries are and how they kind of work a little bit, I want you to take a moment and think about your life as it stands right now. Do you have any boundaries? Are they healthy boundaries? Do the people in your life know that you have boundaries? Have you communicated your boundaries to the people who are doing life with you? If you haven't, that's something you might want to do ASAP. Reason being is, if you are the gatekeeper and it is your piece of land and you are constantly, let me put it to you this way. If you are constantly finding your feelings hurt or you're getting offended because people seem to walk over you or they disregard certain requests that you have, or maybe you've been saying that you don't like a particular thing or you don't want a particular thing, but it seems to go unnoticed or unheard, one of the issues that you could be having is that you might not have a boundary. And if you think you have a boundary, you may not have communicated it clearly to the people in your life. So that is the reason why I'm asking you to examine your boundaries. And so what would that look like in real time? I'll give you a very easy example. If you and I are friends and we're in a relationship, we're in a friendship, and I tell you, friend, listen, I don't mind talking on the phone, because that's a thing. Like, some people don't like talking on the phone. Some people prefer to text. That's actually a boundary, okay? That if somebody's communicating to you, hey, I prefer to speak via text, and you keep calling them to talk, you're violating a boundary. They've just told you, I don't like talking on the phone. I only like to text. That's something that you should consider and respect. That is a boundary. Here's another boundary. If I tell you, listen, I don't mind talking on the telephone, but please don't call me after 9 p.m. because I don't answer my phone after 9 p.m. If I ask you not to call me past 9 p.m., but yet every time you call me, it's 10:01, do you see where I'm going with this? That would be you not honoring my boundary. But there's a catch too, because guess what? I can't ask you to honor a boundary that I'm not also honoring. So if you're calling me at 10:01 after I've said I don't answer my phone after 9 p.m., and I keep answering the phone at 10:01, now I'm not honoring the boundary that I set forth. So therefore, if I don't respect the boundary, how can I expect you to respect the boundary? Do you see how that works? Okay. So this is why I'm saying you want to kind of really look and pay attention and ask yourself, do I have boundaries? What are my boundaries? And have I communicated them clearly? And am I respecting my friend's boundaries? Because that's something that you might want to have that conversation with your friend and just, chop it up and be real. And if they're your friend, they're going to let you know. They're going to let you know. And depending on the type of friendship that you have, they're either going to let you know gently, or they're going to be like, look, sis, I keep telling you stop calling my house past 9 p.m. and you keep calling me past 9 p.m. I'm going to need you to stop. So, only the parameters and the boundaries surrounding your friendship. But that's a conversation that you would want to have. I want to end this part of our conversation with this. It's okay to have boundaries. Boundaries are healthy. They're not a bad thing. They're not meant to offend people. And here's a truth. If you are offended by someone's boundary, that's a you problem. I know. I know. I know that was hard to hear. But this is real talk. I'm going to keep it 100 with you, okay? If you are offended by someone else's boundary, that is a you problem. It's a you problem because they're telling you where the line stops for them, and you're not hearing them. You're not liking it. You're not wanting to go with it. And that's something that you have to work out within yourself. Okay. It's not them being mean to you. It's not them saying, oh, I want to be in control all the time. It's them letting you know where you can and cannot go in their space. And so if you have a problem with that, then that's something that you're going to have to kind of really go inward and search yourself and ask yourself, why do I have a problem with that? Why is this a hard thing for me to understand? And one of the reasons that might come up for you is because maybe you don't have any boundaries around your life, or maybe boundaries is not something that you're accustomed to because that's just not how the environment that you grew up in, or that's not the environment that you live in. And so you don't know how to function in a space that has boundaries. Am I making sense? And that's okay if that's you. I'm not shaming you. I just am bringing awareness to a situation that you might be struggling with, or maybe you didn't even know you were struggling until I just said that. So I want you to understand, sometimes people will give us a boundary and we'll get in our feelings about it, like, well, why can't I call you after 9 p.m.? We're besties. Well, because, I mean, for a plethora of reasons. I'll use my best friend as an example. So, my best friend, I know not to call her. First of all, we have a time difference. So, she's 3 hours ahead of me. She's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. So, I have to work around that boundary. Okay. And we live with boundaries every day. So, this should really not be a hard concept for us to grasp, because there's boundaries all around us. We may just not look at them as a boundary, but they're there. And so Bestie lives on the East Coast. I live on the West Coast. So I have to work around the boundary of the time difference. She also works a 9 to 5 job. I work in the home. And so I understand that her work hours are between this time and this time. So really, that only leaves me a few hours in the day to give her a phone call. Well, Bestie, because she works 9 to 5 and also is a mother and a wife, that means she has other duties outside of work to do. So now that really shrinks down my window of time of when I can call her. And then Bestie decided that she wants a whole night's rest because she deserves it. And that is her prerogative. Okay. That's her business. And so Bestie has said to me, listen, I'm going to bed at around 8:30. So for me, that would be 5:30. So I know that if I look at my watch and I see that, look, right now it's 4:29, that leaves me about a half an hour to 45 minutes to call Bestie if I really need to talk to her. Now, in the event that there's an emergency and something catastrophic has popped off in my life, sure, I can call her past that time because she's my best friend after all. However, I understand and I value the things that she values. I value the fact that she works outside of the home. I value the fact that she's a mother and a wife as well. I value the fact that she has things on her to-do list that she has to do as well. And so that does not always equal her availability for me to sit on the phone and chop it up. Now, do we have our regularly scheduled Gab Fest? Yes, those usually happen on the weekends when she's a little bit more free. But during the week, I know that if it's 5 p.m. my time, she's already laying in her bed. And so I know not to call her, and I don't dare call her. And a few times I've forgotten because for whatever reason, I'm human, it happens. And she has gracefully and graciously, you know, accommodated me in those times, or she'll just let it go to voicemail. Let's just be real. I've been knowing her for over 30 years. So it doesn't hurt my feelings if she doesn't pick up my call. But the whole point of this very long story is to give you a real time example of what it looks like to honor and respect somebody's boundaries, and also what it looks like to honor and respect your own boundaries. Because here's the thing, if she keeps picking up my call and I'm repeatedly calling her after her bedtime and she keeps answering the phone, then that's telling me that she really is not firm and serious about her boundaries. She's just saying it to say it. Does that make sense? All right. I think I've talked that point to death now. So again, don't worry if this is new to you. Don't worry if you don't currently feel like you have boundaries in place. That's okay. Because was introduced to this topic and this concept, I was like, what is this? What do you mean I don't have any boundaries? And let me tell you something. So 20-year-old me was very, very sensitive and easily offended. So when this older mentor looks at me, and she was a no nonsense type of person, and she looks at me and she goes, you know what your problem is? And I was like, what? And she goes, you don't have any boundaries. And I was like, what? And she's like, you don't have any boundaries. And that's why people take advantage of you. That's why people walk all over you, because you just let them. You don't have any boundaries. I was so offended. I was offended. But she told no lies. She absolutely told no lies. And so then it was up to me to do the inner work and ask myself the hard questions. Why is that? Once she explained to me what boundaries were and how they worked and how to use them, I had to go back and do the inner work and really dig deep and figure out, why don't I have any boundaries? Why do I let people walk all over me? Why do I say yes to things that I really want to say no to? Why am I a people pleaser? Why do I do these things repeatedly? And why am I training people how to treat me in this way? Because that's really what it all boils down to at the end of the day, is that you train people how to treat you. And one of the ways that you do that is by either implementing and honoring healthy boundaries or not having any boundaries at all. And then now you've opened yourself up to all kinds of foolishness and mayhem. And I know, because I've been there. Okay. So when I realized, and I had to really trace back into my childhood and realize, oh, okay, for me, part of the reason why I didn't have many boundaries is because I experienced traumas that violated my boundaries. So I was never accustomed to saying no. I had to say yes. I had to go along with certain things. I lived in an environment that was dysfunctional and, dare I say, toxic, that did not allow me to exercise having a boundary. And if I did, it was repeatedly violated on many different levels. And so I took my childhood experience, because let's just face it, the things that happen to us in our childhood shape us and form us into our adolescent and through our adulthood. And we carry that baggage with us all through life. And it causes us to behave and react and do things in a certain way that sometimes we don't always understand why we do the things that we do. And we'll say things like, well, that's just how I am, or that's just how I've always been. But really, if you slow yourself down enough and really start to take stock and pull it apart, you'll begin to trace the steps backward and see where that thing was birthed, how that started, and how you ended up where you are today. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I want to close this video with giving you some tips surrounding boundaries. Now that you have a better understanding of what boundaries are, how to use them, how it can serve you. And yes, there's going to be a part 2, so I'm not going to leave you hanging, because you're really going to want to hear what I have to say in the next video. But before I do that, I want to leave you with some tips that you can apply right now, today, right now, to your life, that are going to help you. Okay. If you're like me and you struggled with boundaries, putting them in place, or it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong or you're being mean, I want to assure you, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not being mean. You're entitled. It's your life. It's your space. It's your land. Remember, it's your land. You get to decide who stays, who goes, where they can and cannot go on your piece of land. Okay. If you don't know anything out of this video, I want you to know you get to decide. You have a voice and you get to use it, and you get to tell people and train people how to treat you. So yes, you can say no. It's the most powerful 2-letter word in the vocabulary. No is a full sentence, period. Okay, I need you to know that. I need you to understand that. All right, so let's get into these tips. Number 1, communicate your boundaries clearly and upfront. So what do I mean by that? If you're just starting a friendship, and let's say you're just getting to know someone that you've just met, It's very important at the onset of that friendship to communicate what your boundaries are. You don't have to do it in a mean way. You don't have to do it in a very legalistic way. You just simply let them know who you are, what you're about, what you like, what you don't like. What are your rules of engagement? Do you like texting or do you like to actually talk on the phone? Do you prefer face to face or are you okay with the text? Things like that. They're very elementary surface level things, but it trains people right out of the gate on you. They don't know you, they don't live in your head. I tell my girls this all the time. People don't live in your head, so you have to tell them what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you like, and what you don't like. You cannot expect them to just figure it out by spending time with you. That it doesn't go by osmosis, okay? It's not going to just travel across time and space and jump into their mind. You have to tell people, okay? Number two, be honest about who you are and what you value and what convictions you have. And so, what does that look like? Well, for me, I tell people right out the gate, I am a Christian. And for me, that means there's certain things that I don't participate with. And I will go into the list of what those things are and why I don't participate with them. Because here's the thing, not all of my friends are Christians. Not all of my friends are walking with the Lord. And some people are in progress. So, in order to make things comfortable for the both of them, I have to let them know up front, listen, I'm a believer and I can get down with this, but I cannot get down with that. I will go to this movie, but I am not going to that movie. And that lets them know what to invite me to and what to not invite me to. And I love that. Okay. Number three, don't assume that the other person holds the same value as you. So even when you're communicating your convictions and your boundaries, you have to understand this. They're yours. Mhm. They're yours. They belong to you. So don't always expect that the people that you're sharing these things with are going to agree with you. Some of them may be like, well, I don't agree with that. Well, I don't like that. Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I believe this. And yes, I've had that conversation with friends too. As a matter of fact, I had a very near and dear friend when we first started our friendship. She was not an atheist, but she didn't really have a belief system. And she was raised Buddhist, okay? And one of the things that she asked me early on as we began to develop our friendship, she was like, hey, are we okay to be friends? And I said, yeah, of course. Why would you ask me that? And she says, because you're a Christian and I'm not. And I don't believe like you believe. So are you allowed to still be my friend? And I have to tell you guys that that broke my heart for so many reasons because number one, that told me that her experience with Christians was not a good one because why else would she be asking me that? Okay. So that broke my heart. Number two, um, just from a human to human level, the fact that someone has to ask me that just really hurt my heart to know, wow, I appreciate you asking me that, but I'm more hurt for you that you had to ask me that. Does that make sense? And so I had that conversation with her and it was a little uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. It was a little uncomfortable for the simple fact that when you're talking with someone who doesn't share the same belief or conviction as you, they're not going to always understand everything that you say. But I feel as though as long as you communicate it with love, with as much clarity as you can, and with honesty and transparency, the things that they don't understand, they will eventually, as time goes on and as they experience you in the friendship, they will eventually understand where you're coming from. And that is exactly what happened with my friend, so much so that I was able to lead her to the Lord. And she is now a Bible believing Christian. So it's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to not believe the same as everyone else. It's okay if they don't agree with your boundaries. You're not looking for agreement here, okay? You're looking for understanding. So I hope that makes sense. What number are we on? Number 4, be firm about your boundaries. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, don't allow people to dissuade you from your boundaries. Well, what could that look like? Well, maybe you're like, I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker, but maybe your friend is, and they keep inviting you to go to have a smoke with them or sit outside with them while they smoke. They keep offering you the thing that you say that you don't partake in. You're going to have to stick to your guns. Okay. Especially if it's something that you used to do and you no longer do. That's where it's really going to be a little testy, because if, let's say, you did used to be a smoker and you quit and you haven't picked up a cigarette for umpteen years, and now you're with someone who smokes all the time, and you're around the smell, and you know how addiction works, you know how that environment can be. You're going to have to stick to your boundaries and say, hey, no, no thanks, I don't do that anymore. And listen, some people some people will test the boundaries. Okay. And if you don't believe me, just spend some time with a toddler. If you really want to understand what a testing of a boundary is, spend some time with a toddler. You will get a full understanding of what I mean by people like to test the boundaries, because I don't know who tests boundaries more than a toddler. Okay? You're going to have to be firm. The same way that you would be firm with your child on a boundary is the same way that you're going to have to be firm with some of your friends, yours, and you know who they are. Okay? Don't sit up there and act like you don't know who we're talking about, right? We know who we're talking about, right? Because you know you got that name. You got that one person in your friend group where you're like, this child right here. Always got to be telling her, look, no. Always got to be telling him, look, sir, we're not doing that today. You know who that is. Be firm on your boundaries. Okay. Number 6, I think. I don't even know. I lost count. The next one. Okay. Make sure, I can't reiterate this enough. I know I said it a few times in this video, but please make sure that you are honoring your boundaries. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be training people how to treat you and you're not treating you well. Hello? What are we doing? Hello? Don't tell people, I don't like this, but then they see you doing it anyway. Because now that makes you a liar. Now that makes you look like, are you serious? Do you really, or don't you? Make up your mind, please. Don't do that. Honor your boundaries, because you're only doing yourself a disservice when you don't. Okay, next one. Another important one. Be gracious. Be gracious. Listen, people are flawed. You are flawed. I am flawed. We don't always get it right. We don't always get it right the first time. We don't always get it right the third time. Some of us don't get it right the 29th and the 52nd and the 100th time. Okay? Be gracious with those who are having a harder time acclimating to your boundaries, especially if they knew you prior to having boundaries, and now this new version of you shows up, which is 100% okay, because we're allowed to change and evolve and all of those great things. But just remember, all the changing and evolving that you have done, you need to give people a little bit of time to catch up to the new version of you. They don't know this person. They know the other person who didn't have any boundaries. They liked that person because they could do whatever they wanted with that person. This new person is like, who are you? What is your name? And you're like, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. So just be gracious with your correction. Be gracious and patient with those in your circle who are not quite catching on to your boundaries. You might have to repeat yourself a few times. Just be gracious. You might have to make some corrections to some people. Be gracious about it, be loving about it, and give them a little bit, just a little bit of slack in the rope so that they can catch up to where you are. Now, what I'm not saying is, if you know for a fact, and it is abundantly clear that they just don't respect your boundaries, that they're just not going to, then you, my friend, have a decision to make. You're going to have to decide very quickly if that is someone that you want to keep close to you. And you're going to have to decide at what length of distance that you want to keep them in your life. I'm not telling you to cut people out. I'm just telling you to make the assessment and make the proper adjustments and move accordingly. Okay. All right. Last one. And I think I said this already. Correct people in love. A soft answer truly does turn away wrath. So listen, it's time for us to stop with the clapback, okay? There's a time and a place for clapback. But all of this rah, 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 I'm going to let you know, I'm going to tell you how the hog ate the cabbage, and I don't take that, and da 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 da. That's not sexy. That's not cute. We are grown. We're grown, okay? For those of you who are still young on my channel and you're 18 and you feel like, oh yes, I'm grown. You still have some growing to do. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of grace, but I'm going to let you know that's not going to be cute 10 years from now. Okay. That's not. You want to be the type of person that can still maintain your integrity and your character and your decorum. Do not allow people to pull you out of your character. So when you have to make a correction, yes, be firm. Be firm. Stand by your convictions by all means, but do so in love. And it does not require a yelling match. It does not require fisticuffs. It does not require you to get out of pocket with it. Simply state what your boundary is, be firm on what your boundaries are. And then if the person is unwilling to respect them, you move accordingly. You make whatever changes necessary, you move accordingly, and you handle your business. Okay. But it does not have to get into a Real Housewives of anything type of situation, if you catch my drift, because we're too cute for that. Let's keep it classy, okay? So this is a good place for us to wrap so that we can go into part 2 of this video, where I will further break down the different areas and boundaries that we have in our lives and what that looks like in the context of friendships. And I want to see how you guys receive that. So I might do one on dating, but I want to handle it with the friendships first and see if y'all are picking up what I'm putting down. But if you enjoyed this topic today, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you have any questions, if you want to discuss more things, put it in the comments. Let me know. Talk back to me. Okay. Let me know that this is helping you. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Let me know respectfully, because if you're rude, I'm just going to block you. Okay. Respectfully, let me know how you've been enjoying this content and what you would like to discuss on this topic or any other topic that you want to talk about. Okay. That's all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for sitting with me. I hope that you receive some gems, some nuggets that you can take and put in your tool bag. And you know what I'm going to tell you until the next time. You are loved. I love you. And God loves you more. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one. Bye-bye.